Ever feel like you're being pulled in two different directions? Like, you want to be your best self, but there's this other part of you that's, well, let's just say not so ideal.
We've all been there.
Today's deep dive is all about that inner struggle.
That's right. We're going to explore Chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita, Divine and Demoniac Natures.
And before you think we're about to go all Ghostbusters on you.
No proton packs needed for this one.
It's not about literal demons, but about understanding the forces inside each of us.
Yeah, the ones that can either, lift us up or kind of drag us down.
Exactly.
It's kind of like having this wise mentor on one shoulder.
Oh, like that.
And then a mischievous gremlin on the other.
Okay, so maybe we need a little holy water just in case.
Maybe a sprinkle. But really, this chapter, it's about recognizing those whispers in our ear, understanding, what they're trying to tell us.
And then ultimately, I guess, making choices that align with our, best selves.
Exactly. And chapter 16, it really doesn't waste any time getting to the heart of it all. Right away, in verses 3 and 4, we're presented with this stark choice.
Ooh, a fork in the road.
One path is based on faith and devotion. It leads to liberation.
Freedom.
The other path, though, it's rooted in doubt and attachment to, material things.
Yeah.
And that one, it traps us in these endless cycles of birth and death.
Oh, so it's not just about, being a good person. It's about something much deeper, right? Aligning ourselves with the truth that goes beyond just, everyday actions.
Absolutely. And verse 3 actually warns us. It says, "Those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me, but return to birth and death in this material world."
Whoa. Okay, that's pretty intense.
It is.
So for those who are on that path of devotion, what's waiting for them at the end of it?
Well, verse 4 gives us a glimpse of that destination.
Okay, tell me more.
It says, "Those who are full of faith, free from malice, control their minds, and are engaged in devotional service to me, quickly become free from the contamination of material existence and attain the spiritual kingdom."
So you have these two paths laid out before us, but how do we know which one we're actually on? I mean, most of us are somewhere in between, right? Not a saint, but not a, supervillain either.
That's where the Gita's checklist of qualities comes in.
The checklist.
It provides this really detailed description of both divine and demoniac natures.
Okay.
And it helps us recognize even those really subtle expressions of these forces within ourselves.
So let's start with the demonic side.
Okay.
What are some signs that our inner gremlin might be, taking over the controls?
Now, keep in mind, the Gita, it uses pretty strong language here.
Okay.
It really wants to highlight the dangers of this path. So some of the qualities that are listed include hypocrisy, arrogance, pride, anger, harshness, and even violence.
Yikes.
And those who are driven by this nature, they tend to be consumed by lust, greed, and envy.
Yeah. Okay, not exactly qualities we want to be putting on our vision boards.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest, even thinking about those traits, I can see little glimpses of them in myself sometimes. Like that urge to always have to be right, or even that subtle, feeling of being better than someone else. Those are probably whispers of the demoniac nature.
Absolutely. It's not about being perfect. Nobody is. But it's about recognizing these tendencies within ourselves so we can consciously choose a different path. We all have both natures within us. The key is being aware of how they influence our thoughts and our actions.
Okay, so if those are the red flags for the demonic side, what does the divine side look like? What are the qualities that we should be cultivating?
It's like a complete 180 from those demoniac traits. The Gita describes divine qualities as fearlessness, purity of heart, steadfastness and spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the scriptures, austerity, and straightforwardness.
Wow, it's quite a list.
It is.
But it sounds like trading in that inner critic that we all have for a much wiser, more compassionate mentor.
Exactly. And that's really the key takeaway here, that shift in focus. Divine qualities are all about self-restraint, humility, and a genuine concern for the well-being of others. It's about moving from a mindset of me to we.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm guessing it's not just about, grand heroic actions either. Even everyday choices like being patient when you're stuck in a long line or choosing to forgive someone instead of holding a grudge. Those can reflect those divine qualities too, right?
You hit the nail on the head. The Gita encourages us to see every single moment as an opportunity to choose the divine over the demoniac. It's about recognizing those subtle choices we make throughout the day and consciously steering ourselves towards a higher path.
I'm already starting to think about my own life in a whole new way. But to make this even more relatable for everyone listening, let's bring this into the real world. Can we dive into some modern-day examples of these two natures in action? We see these forces playing out all around us, don't we?
Oh, absolutely, all the time. Think about those viral videos you see online, the ones with road rage incidents.
Oh yeah, those are scary.
People just lashing out with anger and aggression. That's a pretty clear example of the demoniac nature running wild.
Okay, so road rage, we'll put that in the demonic column. What about the divine side? What are some examples of that force at work in the world today?
Well, think about those stories you hear about everyday heroes. People who risk their own lives to help strangers in need, or even just the countless acts of kindness that happen all the time that we don't always hear about. A volunteer at a food bank, a neighbor checking in on an elderly person, someone just offering a listening ear to a friend who's going through a hard time. These are all expressions of those divine qualities we've been talking about.
You're right. It's so easy to get caught up in all the negative stuff that's happening in the world. But those acts of kindness and compassion, they're happening all the time, even if they don't always make the news.
Exactly. And remember, it doesn't have to be some grand gesture. Even simple choices, like being patient with a coworker who's driving you crazy, or choosing to forgive someone instead of holding a grudge. Those reflect those divine qualities too.
This is already making me want to do some serious inner work. But before we jump into the practical side of cultivating those divine qualities, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered so far.
What's truly fascinating to me is that the Bhagavad Gita, it's not just some ancient text. It's this living guide to understanding the human experience. It's like a roadmap to navigating the ups and downs of life and aligning ourselves with our highest potential.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most powerful takeaways from all of this is that we actually have a choice. We're not just, victims of our circumstances or our emotions. We have the power to choose the divine over the demoniac, even in the smallest moments of our lives.
That's a perfect segue into the next part of our deep dive. We're going to explore some practical techniques and strategies for actually putting this wisdom into action. Because, knowing the theory is one thing, but actually cultivating those divine qualities, that's where the real transformation begins.
I can't wait to dive into that. But for now, let's leave everyone listening with this thought. Take a moment to really think about your own life. Where do you see those divine and demoniac forces playing out? And what choices can you make today to nurture that divine spark within yourself?
We'll be back soon to explore those questions in more depth. Until then, keep seeking, keep striving, and keep choosing the path that leads to your highest good.
So we're back and ready to keep untangling this whole divine versus demoniac thing from chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita.
Last time we left off with a pretty big question.
Yeah, how do we actually nurture that divine spark within us?
It's one thing to know about these qualities, but it's a whole other thing to actually cultivate them.
Totally. It's like, you can't just have a garden and admire the flowers. You got to tend to them, right?
Exactly.
Weed out the stuff that doesn't belong and give those flowers what they need to thrive.
And the Gita, it gives us some tools to do just that.
I'm listening.
One of the most basic ones is self-control.
Self-control.
Yeah.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Right. Especially when it comes to our senses. Remember that demoniac nature, it thrives on instant gratification.
Oh yeah, give me all the good stuff now.
But those fleeting pleasures, they ultimately lead to suffering.
So it's about learning to say no even when it's tough.
It is.
Like resisting that extra slice of cake or, actually getting up for that morning run instead of hitting snooze again.
Exactly. It's about delaying gratification, practicing discipline.
Not my strong suit.
It's like building a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's be real for a second. Sometimes that little gremlin on our shoulder is screaming in our ear.
Oh, yeah.
What are some other ways we can quiet down those demoniac tendencies?
Well, the Gita emphasizes spiritual knowledge,
Okay.
studying the scriptures, engaging in self-reflection, seeking guidance from those who are wiser than us.
So, like arming ourselves with knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah, so we can recognize those demoniac whispers when we hear them and make a different choice.
I like it.
And don't underestimate the power of mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Just becoming aware of our thoughts and emotions without judging them.
That can be tough.
It can, but it creates a space between those impulses and our actions. Recognizing those thoughts and feelings as they come up, but not letting them control us.
It's like hitting the pause button before we react.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Giving ourselves that chance to choose a more conscious response.
I can see how that would be helpful.
The Gita also puts a lot of emphasis on selfless service.
Oh, yeah.
When we shift our focus from our own wants and needs to the well-being of others, it's like those divine qualities naturally start to shine through.
It's like that saying, right? The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Exactly.
But, this chapter, it also talks about what happens when we choose the demoniac path.
It does.
And it's not a pretty picture.
No, it's not. The Gita warns us that those who give in to those tendencies, they're going to experience suffering. And not just that they'll create chaos in the world around them, too.
This is not just a personal thing.
No, these choices have bigger consequences. They create negative karma, more pain and disharmony.
It's a reminder that even those inner battles we have, they can impact so much more than just ourselves.
They really can. The Gita reminds us that we're all connected. Our actions, they create ripples.
Positive or negative.
Exactly. So by choosing the divine path, we're not just elevating ourselves, we're contributing to a better world for everyone.
So it's not just about personal salvation.
Yeah.
It's about our responsibility to create a better future for all of us.
But it is. The Gita is calling us to be agents of positive change.
To use what we know about these two natures to make choices that lift everyone up.
Right.
I think one of the biggest misunderstandings about the Bhagavad Gita is that it's all about renouncing the world and becoming a hermit.
Right.
But this chapter, it shows a much different picture, doesn't it?
It does. The Gita recognizes that we all have roles to play in the world, and it encourages us to fulfill those roles with integrity and a spirit of selfless service.
So it's not about escaping from the world. It's about transforming ourselves within it.
It is.
But how do we do that? How do we balance our responsibilities in the world with our desire to grow spiritually?
That's the big question, isn't it? And the Gita offers some really profound insights. One key concept is performing our actions without being attached to the results.
Wait, so does that mean we shouldn't care about the outcome? Just become passive?
No, not at all. It's about recognizing that we can control our efforts, but not necessarily the results.
Okay.
So by focusing on our dharma, our duty, and performing our actions with excellence and dedication, we free ourselves from all that anxiety that comes with needing a specific outcome.
It's like surrendering the need to control everything.
It is.
And trusting that things will unfold as they should.
Exactly. And that surrender, that detachment from ego-driven desires, it's a hallmark of the divine nature. It allows us to act with clarity, purpose, and inner peace, no matter what the outcome may be.
That's a really powerful concept, especially in today's world where it feels like everyone is constantly striving and pushing for more.
The Gita reminds us that true fulfillment, it doesn't come from external achievements. It comes from inner transformation.
It's about cultivating a way of being, a way of living that reflects those divine qualities in everything we do.
That's it.
One thing that really stands out to me in this chapter is the emphasis on self-awareness. It's like a constant invitation to check in with ourselves, to notice when we're being pulled towards a demoniac, and then consciously choose a different path.
Self-awareness, it's the foundation of spiritual growth. Without it, we're like ships lost at sea, just tossed around by our desires and circumstances. But when we cultivate that inner compass, we gain the ability to navigate life's challenges with grace, wisdom, and a sense of purpose.
Okay, so let's make this real. Can you give us an example of how we can actually apply this idea of self-awareness in our everyday lives?
Sure. Imagine you're dealing with a really tough situation at work. Maybe a coworker is being difficult, or you're just feeling completely overwhelmed. Instead of immediately reacting with anger or frustration, take a moment to pause. Observe your thoughts and emotions. Ask yourself, what's really driving my reaction right now? Is it fear, insecurity, that need to be right all the time?
It's like taking a step back from ourselves.
Exactly. Becoming an observer of our own inner landscape.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful.
And once you've figured out what's at the root of your reaction, you can choose a more conscious response. Maybe it's having a calm conversation with your coworker, or asking your manager for support, or even just taking a few deep breaths and reminding yourself that this too shall pass.
So it's about responding instead of reacting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Choosing the divine over the demoniac, even in those small everyday moments.
I love that.
And the more we practice this kind of self-awareness, the better we become at making choices that are aligned with our higher purpose.
And creating a more positive experience for ourselves and the people around us.
Exactly.
I feel like this deep dive has given us so many tools to handle those inevitable challenges in life with more grace, wisdom, and maybe even a little bit of joy.
The Gita reminds us that we aren't victims of our circumstances or emotions. We have the power to choose to transform to become the best versions of ourselves.
Pretty empowering stuff.
Yeah.
But I know everyone listening is eager to hear even more practical advice.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
So the next part of our deep dive, let's explore some specific techniques and strategies for cultivating those divine qualities in our daily lives. What do you say?
Let's do it. I'm excited to share some more of the Gita's wisdom for living a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Okay, so we're back and ready for the final part of our deep dive into chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita.
We've been talking all about this inner battle between our divine and demoniac natures, right?
Yeah, and how understanding this struggle can help us, live better lives, make choices that align with our true selves.
Exactly. And in this last part, we're going to get really practical. We've covered the theory, the qualities, the consequences of choosing one path over the other. Now it's time to talk about how to actually cultivate those divine qualities.
Right, because knowing what to do and actually doing it are two very different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So where do we begin?
That's the big question.
The Gita highlights a few key practices,
Okay.
but one of the most fundamental is mindfulness.
Mindfulness. We hear that word a lot these days.
We do, and for good reason. It's about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. Being aware of our thoughts and emotions as they come up, observing them with curiosity instead of getting swept away by them.
So it's not about trying to stop our thoughts altogether.
No, not at all. It's more about changing our relationship to those thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
So instead of being controlled by them, we learn to observe them, acknowledge them, and then choose how we respond.
So it's like having a choice in how we react to things.
Exactly. But how do we actually cultivate mindfulness, in our busy, crazy lives?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Well, there are a lot of simple ways to bring mindfulness into your daily routine.
Really?
Yeah, one is to start a meditation practice.
Oh, meditation.
Even just a few minutes each day can make a difference. Find a quiet spot, sit comfortably, and just focus on your breath.
I know meditation can be kind of intimidating for some people.
It can.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be complicated. There are tons of guided meditations out there online through apps.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So you can find one that speaks to you and guides you through the process.
That makes it less scary.
And you can also practice mindfulness throughout the day while you're doing everyday things.
Well, like what?
Like pay attention to your senses when you're walking or eating or even taking a shower. Notice the colors, the sounds, the textures around you.
It's like really being present in those moments instead of just going through the motions.
Exactly. Another powerful technique is gratitude.
Gratitude.
Taking some time each day to think about the things you're grateful for.
Oh, I love that.
It can really shift your perspective from a feeling of lack to a feeling of abundance.
It's like focusing on the good stuff instead of all the negative.
Right. And speaking of transforming our mood, the Gita also talks about controlling our senses.
Oh, yeah, that came up before.
Especially when it comes to things like food and entertainment.
So it's not about, depriving ourselves or anything.
No, it's about making conscious choices. Choices that nourish our bodies and our minds.
Aligning those choices with the divine qualities we're trying to cultivate.
Exactly. That demoniac nature, it loves excess.
Always wanting more and more and more.
But the divine nature, it seeks balance, moderation, purity.
So it's like choosing food that gives us energy instead of weighing us down.
Yes. Or picking entertainment that lifts us up instead of draining us.
Makes sense.
And let's not forget about selfless service.
Oh, that's a big one.
When we focus on helping others, it takes our attention away from our own desires.
And it reminds us that we're all connected.
Exactly. The Gita encourages us to see every interaction as a chance to express those divine qualities.
Compassion, kindness, generosity.
Yes. Whether you're volunteering at a charity, helping out a neighbor, or just offering a kind word to a stranger, those acts of service, they make a difference.
They really do.
But remember, cultivating these divine qualities, it's a journey. It's not like you just flip a switch and you're done.
Yeah, there are going to be times when we mess up, right? When those demoniac tendencies pop up.
Of course. The important thing is to not get discouraged. See those moments as opportunities to learn and grow.
Like course correcting along the way.
Exactly. The Gita reminds us that even the greatest spiritual masters, they had their struggles.
So we're not alone in this.
Not at all. What matters is that we stay committed to the path.
Keep choosing the divine over the demoniac.
Day after day, moment after moment. It's a message of hope and empowerment.
Yeah.
We all have the potential to embody these qualities.
And to create a better world for ourselves and everyone around us.
That's the beauty of it. The power is within each of us. The Gita just gives us a map, a guide to help us navigate life and realize our true potential.
This deep dive has been amazing. I feel like we've learned so much about the Bhagavad Gita and how it applies to our lives today.
It's been a pleasure exploring these teachings with you.
Likewise. And you know the journey doesn't end here.
It doesn't. Keep studying the Gita, reflect on its wisdom, and most importantly, put those teachings into practice in your everyday life.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to keep learning and growing.
That's great to hear.
And I hope everyone listening is too. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, may the divine light within you shine brightly.